Good evening. I'm here for Mr. Joel Asante. Is he around? Thalassa said to the lady at the front desk of the Astoria Hotel. She felt so tense that she didn't realize she was tapping her fingers loudly on the desk until a woman standing beside her hissed and glared at her. Flashing an apologetic smile, Thalassa brought her gaze back to the receptionist who was done checking the appointment. Yes, he is. And he's expecting you.
Suite 13.
Take the elevator to the 7th floor and turn to your left. Thank you, Thalassa said as she turned to go, her unease increasing with every step she took towards the elevator. Why did she feel like something was amiss? She had been sent to meet this Joel Asante by her mother-in-law, Linda Miller. Linda Miller had never liked Thalassa since she began dating her son, Kris Miller, and the dislike had increased even more since Kris and Thalassa got married a year ago. So today when her mother-in-law had called her and told her to deliver some documents and have it signed if she wanted to earn her approval, Thalassa hadn't hesitated one bit. Maybe if she managed to earn her mother-in-law's approval, then Kris would finally go back to being the man she knew. Her ringing phone cut through her thoughts. Thalassa quickly answered when she saw that it was her best friend, Karen Blade. Lassa, are you going to do what your mother-in-law asked of you? Karen asked. Yes, Thalassa answered. I'm at the hotel now. But Karen, I don't know why I feel like there's something off. Karen blew out a breath of exhaustion. Lassa, I already told you that you're overthinking things. Linda wants you to do something so simple in order to earn her approval. Don't overthink it. Lassa smiled. You're right. Just as they ended the call, the elevator dinged, slowly parting its doors. Thalassa stepped out, heading to her left like the receptionist had said. Reaching the door with number 13 on it, she pressed the doorbell. After some seconds, she was about to press it again when the door suddenly opened to reveal a half-naked man. He was only wearing blue shorts, leaving his upper body bare. Thalassa grimaced slightly as she spoke. Mr. Joel Asante? At your service. The man flashed her a smile that was surely meant to be charming. And you must be Thalassa Miller. Please come in. Thalassa slowly stepped into the living room of the suite. The man pointed at the couch. Please take a seat. She hesitated, wanting to remind him that she was just here for his signatures, but when she remembered her mother-in-law telling her not to annoy the man, she slowly sat down. What can I offer you? Champagne, wine, beer? The man asked. I'd like nothing, thanks. Thalassa answered, the gritted her teeth. She just wanted him to sign already so she could leave. And why wasn't he attempting to put any shirt on? Oh, come on. Surely just a glass of wine won't hurt, will it? The man insisted. This time Thalassa didn't bother to hide her glare. I'm sorry, but I'm just here so you can sign these documents. She pulled a folder from the handbag she'd brought along with her, handing it over to the man. My mother-in-law, Linda Miller, said that you already know what the documents contain. The folder was sealed, and Thalassa herself didn't even know what was in the documents. Her mother-in-law had warned her not to open it, so she hadn't dared to, not wanting to annoy her. The man hummed as he took the folder from Thalassa and unsealed it, walking around the room as he looked through the document. Lassa shifted. She felt uncomfortable, especially since the man was still shirtless. And why did she feel like he was deliberately delaying? 5 minutes later, just as she was getting more impatient, the doorbell rang. The man immediately went to open the door, and a second later, her husband, Kris Miller, stormed into the room. Where is she? He demanded in a tone that was too low not to be dangerous, his eyes hardening when he finally saw Thalassa. Thalassa instantly shot to her feet. Kris, you're here. She felt relieved. Maybe Kris could finally handle things from here. She walked towards Kris, wanting to hug him, but just as she got close, he placed his hand on her chest, causing her to stumble backwards. Kris! Lassa stared at him in shock. Before she could say anything else, Linda Miller, her mother-in-law, suddenly entered the room, the usual disgust on her face as she stared at Thalassa. You traitor! After everything my family has done for you, this is how you repay us. Before Thalassa could even think, a hot slap was delivered to her cheek. Thalassa clutched her cheek, staring at her mother-in-law in shock. Mrs. Miller. What? What are you talking about? Linda Miller scoffed. Don't you dare try to act like you don't know what I'm talking about. Since you and my son got married a year ago, You've been stealing from us, embezzling millions from our company with the help of this man who's obviously your lover. Thalassa's head spun. What was happening? But mother-in-law, you were the one who sent me here. You sent me to have this man sign some documents. So what are you talking about? She turned to look at Kris, her heart squeezing at the accusing look in his eyes. Kris, I don't know this man, I promise. I haven't even met him before. Please believe me. Your mother was the one who sent me here to give some documents to him to sign. You're so shameless. You dare try to implicate me, Linda said, then turned to Kris, who still had a stoic expression on his face as he stared at Thalassa. Son, why don't you go and see what's inside those documents? Kris walked towards Joel and snatched the folder from his hand. His eyes darkened the more he read through the documents. When he finally looked up at Thalassa, his gaze was even more colder than before, so cold that she felt frozen. Her desperation shooting through the roof, she forced herself to move towards him and took the folder from his hands. Her hands trembled as she read parts of the documents. It was all about discreetly moving money to overseas bank accounts and everything that was obviously fraud. Thalassa's eyes burned with tears as she shook her head, finally realizing what was happening. She'd been set up. Her mother-in-law had set her up. Kris, I didn't know what documents were in the folder, I swear, she declared, trying to grab his hand, but he jerked it away. Your mother told me not to unseal it, so I didn't. Please, you have got to believe me. I would never. Shut up, Kris snapped, startling her into silence. Shut the fuck up. Enough with your lies. He stepped closer, glaring into her eyes. Just when I think you can't disappoint me any further, you make me realize that you're much worse than I thought. You disgust me. His words were like a slap, leaving Thalassa stunned. Just as her mind was still struggling to process everything, she heard her mother-in-law call out, "Come in, officers." Thalassa's eyes widened as two police officers walked into the room. She looked at Kris. Surely, he wouldn't allow for her to be arrested like some common criminal, would he? She got her answer a second later when Kris coldly declared, "Officers, take them away." Tears streamed down Thalassa's face as one of the officers stepped behind her and took her hands, placing her wrists in cuffs. She stared pleadingly at Kris, hoping he would realize his mistake and save her from this humiliation, but he merely stared at her with nothing but coldness as she was led out of the room. As if this humiliation wasn't enough, when they got outside, several reporters instantly rushed towards her, flashing cameras as they came. Thalassa, is it really true that you married Kris Miller all for his money? How do you feel after your theft was discovered? Thalassa had never felt this humiliated in her life, with people staring at her and reporters asking all sorts of questions as she was led into the police car. Wait, please, this is a mistake. I'm innocent. You've got to believe me, she pleaded with the police officer who led her into the holding cell. The officer laughed as he locked the gate to the cell. That's what they all say. You really should have thought twice before messing with a woman like Linda Miller. Still laughing, he walked off. More tears streamed down Thalassa's face. She'd known that her mother-in-law had never liked her, but to hate her this much, to construct such a plot against her? Her eyes scanned the room and its cold, barren walls before settling on the bed that looked like it had seen better days. This was where she was, a place meant for criminals. Her heart broke a million times over as she sank onto the bed. How could Kris have done this to her? She wasn't going to deceive herself into thinking that her marriage had been perfect before this. It had been far from it. While they were dating, Kris had been the perfect gentleman, always putting her needs first. He'd gone against his own mother and his family members when they disapproved of their relationship because Thalassa was from a low class. He'd even warned reporters and tabloids who'd insinuated that she was a gold digger. He'd been the perfect man. But all that changed once they got married. Kris transformed into a completely different person. From the man who always treated her like a queen, he turned into a man who made her cry almost every night with his coldness. It tormented her all the more because she couldn't understand what could have possibly made him change so much. To top it off, she'd had to deal with the humiliation from his family members, being treated like a servant in their family home. That was what her life had been like for the past year. Still, she never would have expected Kris to allow her to be arrested and humiliated like some common criminal. It hurt even more because she was carrying his child. Lassa sniffed as she placed her hand over her belly. She was pregnant, but Kris didn't know about it. She'd found out yesterday and she'd wanted to tell him, but he hadn't come home in the past 2 days, and he never bothered to answer any of her calls. The only person she'd told was Karen, her best friend. Aside from her, no one else knew. "Don't worry, baby. It's all going to be all right, I promise," she said to her belly, even though she knew it was probably still a clot of blood since she was only 2 months pregnant. "Your father is going to realize his mistake any moment now, and he's going to apologize, and everything is going to be all right. You'll see." The next 3 days in the holding cell were the most agonizing days of Thalassa's life. Kris never came to get her out or apologize. In fact, nobody came to visit her. She demanded several times for the one phone call she knew she was entitled to, but it was always denied. They hadn't even given her a chance to call a lawyer. Thalassa had no doubt that this was all Linda Miller using her influence. Was the woman truly intent on having her jailed for something she never did? On the evening of the 3rd day, Thalassa was lying on the prison bed crying silently to herself when she suddenly heard the sound of the prison cell being unlocked. She quickly sat up, her eyes widening with hope as she saw Mr. Sawyer, Kris's family lawyer. "You're lucky that the Miller family decided to drop the charges. You're being released," the officer said. Thalassa's heart leapt with joy. Finally, Kris had realized his mistake. He was surely going to apologize for not trusting her earlier. Everything was going to be all right. "Thank you so much," she said to the lawyer as she wiped her tears. "But where is Kris?" She stepped outside of the cell, looking down the hallway to see whether Kris was standing anywhere there. But he was nowhere in sight. "Kris didn't come with me," the lawyer clarified. "He merely sent me to drop the charges and have you released." Thalassa's heart sank, but she quickly smiled. Kris was probably too busy, that's why he couldn't come, but he was obviously waiting for her at home. Everything was going to be fine, she assured herself again. The lawyer began walking to the main station, so Thalassa followed. The cops had taken her handbag and her phone yesterday, so she was led to sign some documents to finally have her things back. Once she was done, she turned to the lawyer. "Didn't Kris send a chauffeur? Or are you going to be driving me home?" The lawyer looked at her. "That's one thing I wanted to talk to you about." Thalassa's heart skipped a beat. "What about?" Without answering, the lawyer brought out some papers from his bag and handed them over to her. Thalassa's heart sank as she stared at the words boldly written on top of the first page. "Divorce agreement." Thalassa's hand shook as her eyes repeatedly ran over the bold words. Divorce agreement. Agreement? She certainly didn't remember sitting down to talk about anything. This surely had to be a mistake. She turned her panicked eyes to the lawyer. "Is this a joke?" "I don't remember comedian being in my job description, Miss Thompson," the lawyer said, sounding offended. "Then what is this?" Thalassa demanded, her voice louder than she intended, laden with frustration. The lawyer's nostrils flared as he looked around at the people staring at them. "It's exactly what you're looking at, Miss Thompson. Kris wants a divorce." Thalassa noted how he kept referring to her by her maiden name, as if she and Kris were already divorced. The lawyer took a step closer. "Look, don't make this complicated. You're lucky to be walking away with just a divorce. You could have spent several years rotting in jail. You should be thankful to Kris that he convinced his mother to drop the charges." Just like that, Thalassa felt hope spark inside her. Kris had convinced his mother to drop the charges. That could only mean that he loved her. There was definitely an explanation for all this. Mr. Sawyer drew a pen from his bag. "Here, please take the pen and sign the papers. There's no alimony because Kris said you can keep the millions you stole into your offshore accounts. All you have to do is sign at the required spots, and he'll have your belongings delivered to wherever you want." Before the lawyer could finish speaking, Thalassa had turned and began storming out of the police station. Reaching the roadside, she quickly waved her hand at an approaching cab. The car stopped in front of her, and she didn't waste time entering. "The Miller mansion," she instructed the driver. She still had the divorce papers in her hand, and her heart pounded as she stared at them. It couldn't be true. This had to be another one of Linda Miller's schemes to separate her and Kris. She wasn't going to believe it until Kris himself told her that he wanted a divorce. When the driver stopped outside the Miller mansion, she reached into her bag and pulled out some dollar notes. Not caring how much it was, she tossed it at the driver and got out. She was just about to enter through the gate when a burly security guard stepped in front of her. "You can't go in," he said gruffly. Thalassa glared at him. "What do you mean I can't go in? This is my house. I'm Kris's wife." "I know that. But I've been given orders by Mrs. Miller not to let you in." Of course it was Linda Miller's orders. Thalassa roughly ran her fingers through her hair, feeling like she was going insane. Without a second thought, she ran past the security guard onto the mansion's compound. "Hey, I told you can't go in," the man hissed, running after her. But his speed was no match for Thalassa's desperation as she ran on and finally entered the house. The Miller family was all gathered in the living room, but Kris was nowhere in sight. All of them turned to look at her disdainfully before storming towards her. "What are you doing here, you thief?" Cynthia, Kris's aunt, demanded. "This bitch really has some guts." Tyler, Kris's younger brother, scoffed. "I'm going to drag her out by her hair." Susan, Kris's younger sister, gritted out. "Ma'am, I tried to stop her, but she just ran past me," the security guard said as he appeared behind Thalassa, grabbing her by the arm. "It's okay. Let go of her arm," Linda Miller said as she finally stopped in front of Thalassa. The rest of her family also stopped behind her, their eyes blazing like vultures, waiting to tear Thalassa to shreds. "You have no shame showing your face here after what you did to my son and our family," Linda sneered, her voice dripping with disgust. Anger shot through Thalassa as she snapped. "I did not do anything, and you know it. You were the one who sent me to meet that man. Why are you doing this? Why are you lying?" Her voice broke, which only increased the pleasure on her mother-in-law's face. "My son wants nothing to do with you anymore, Thalassa, so you have no business being here. Get out of here. You're nothing but a snake. I am not leaving until I speak to Kris," Thalassa stated firmly, glaring back at her. "Don't speak to my mother like that," Kris's harsh voice sounded as he approached. Thalassa immediately ran towards him, holding up the divorce papers. "Kris, your lawyer. He came to me and gave me these papers. He said you wanted a divorce, but I know it's got to be a mistake." "It's all a mistake, right?" Kris stared coldly into her eyes as he answered. "There's no mistake." Thalassa stumbled back, shaking her head in disbelief. "Kris, please, you can't. Let's save our marriage. All this is a misunderstanding. I didn't do anything. Please, you've got to believe me. Do you really still believe that I want to continue being with a woman like you? You don't even have the decency to admit what you did." Kris snorted, his cold eyes boring into her. "But I didn't do anything," Thalassa declared desperately, grabbing onto his arm. "Kris, please be. Let go of me," he hissed, snatching his arm from her hold. "Why is the door left open?" A voice came from behind Thalassa. It was the voice of Karen Blade, her best friend. Hope beamed inside Thalassa. "Thalassa!" Karen gasped with surprise when she finally saw her. "You're out of jail?" Thalassa instantly moved towards her and grabbed her hand, leading her to where Kris was standing. "Karen, please tell Kris. Tell him how I called you after his mother sent me to give the documents to that man. Tell him how I was hesitant because something didn't feel right. Tell him that I'm innocent." Thalassa waited for Karen to tell Kris exactly that. But the next words out of her best friend's mouth sent her whole world crashing down. "I'm sorry, Thalassa, but I'm tired of always covering up your lies. You never called me." Karen's denial was like a slap, causing Thalassa to stumble backward as her mouth dropped open in shock. But Karen, what are you saying? What lies? I called you to tell you about it. You even called me later to ask whether I was on my way to do what my mother-in-law had asked." Karen's eyes, which usually always shone with affection, now blazed coldly with malice. "Enough already, Thalassa. Aren't you tired of always telling lies? I'm so tired of always having to lie for you, but I can't anymore. Kris is a good man and he doesn't deserve your deceptions." Thalassa's head spun as she tried to process everything. Was she dreaming? She had to be dreaming. Otherwise, why would her best friend, the person she trusted and confided in the most, betray her like this? Feeling like her heart was beating out of her chest, she turned to Kris, looking at him pleadingly. "Baby, please, I don't know why Karen is lying, but please believe me. I haven't done anything. I've never lied to you." You lowlife thief. So everyone else is a liar except you. Susan, Kris's sister, snorted as she crossed her arms over her chest. Thalassa paid no heed to her words because they didn't matter. The only person whose opinion mattered to her at that moment was Kris. Kris, why aren't you saying anything? Please tell me you believe me. I have nothing to say to you apart from the fact that you should sign the divorce papers and disappear from my life. I want nothing to do with you. No. Thalassa declared loudly, throwing the divorce papers to the ground. I refused to sign them. Kris, you can't possibly believe that I could lie and steal from you in such a way. She grabbed his hand, staring into his hard eyes with her pleading ones. You promised me that nothing would ever come between us. What happened to that promise? That's because I didn't know I was marrying a liar, a thief, and a slut. He hissed, jerking his hand away. It's okay. I've had enough of this woman, Linda Miller said. If she refuses to sign the divorce papers, we can get it another way. Take her away. Immediately, the security guard grabbed Thalassa's arm, but just as he was about to drag her away, she yelled, I am pregnant.